As a student preparing to enter the games and 3D art industry, I used to think the career path was straightforward. Spend countless hours mastering topology, creating high quality assets, and building a strong portfolio. The assumption was simple. If the work was good enough, opportunities would naturally follow. However, the more I researched the contemporary creative economy, the more I realized that artistic excellence alone is no longer enough. Today, creative professionals operate within digital platforms that shape how work is discovered, shared, and valued. Whether you're a freelance artist, an independent game developer, or a small 3D art studio, visibility is increasingly controlled by platform systems rather than creative quality alone. Through my research, it became clear that this transformation can be understood through the concept of platformization developed by David Nieborg and Thomas Poyle. They argue that cultural production is increasingly organized through digital platforms that influence not only how content is distributed but also how it is created. In other words, platforms do not simply host content, they actively shape professional behavior. This leads to the central research question of this video essay. To what extent does LinkedIn operate as an unequal algorithmic gatekeeper for small 3D art studios? Drawing upon academic literature, industry reports, and primary research conducted with Kinshuk Modi, co-founder of Setucom Studio, I argue that LinkedIn is far from a neutral professional networking platform. Instead, it functions as an algorithmically governed environment that demands continuous visibility labor, privileges users with existing social capital, and creates structural inequalities that disproportionately affect smaller studios. To understand this argument, we first need to challenge the common perception of LinkedIn as merely a digital notice board for professional networking. In the Platform Society, Jose Van Dijk, Thomas Poyle, and Martin de Waal argue that platforms actively organize social and economic interactions through their own systems, rules, and algorithms. Rather than simply connecting users, platforms influence who becomes visible, which content gains attention, and what behaviors are rewarded. This perspective is important because it shifts our understanding of LinkedIn from a passive networking tool to an active participant in professional life. The platform determines which posts appear in users' feeds, which creators receive engagement, and which organizations gain exposure. As a result, access to opportunities is increasingly mediated through algorithmic systems. Nieborg and Poel extend this argument through their theory of platformization. They suggest that creators increasingly adapt their practices to suit platform requirements rather than producing content solely according to professional goals or creative vision. Users begin tailoring content to maximize algorithmic visibility. For a small 3D art studio, this creates a significant shift. Instead of simply creating artwork, artists must consider how their content will perform within LinkedIn's engagement system. Questions emerge such as, will this post encourage comments? Will users spend enough time looking at it? Will it generate meaningful interaction? These considerations demonstrate how platform logic begins influencing professional communication and creative presentation. The influence of platformization becomes particularly visible when examining LinkedIn's recent algorithm changes. Industry reports from Agorapulse and Visible indicate that LinkedIn has moved away from prioritizing passive engagement metrics such as likes and impressions. Instead, the platform increasingly values active forms of engagement, including comments, discussions, shares, and dwell time, the amount of time users spend viewing content. At first glance, this may appear beneficial because it rewards meaningful interaction rather than superficial popularity. However, the consequences are more complex. For a small 3D art studio, producing an impressive render or environment artwork is no longer sufficient. Visibility now depends on generating conversations and maintaining audience engagement. The platform effectively requires creators to become content strategists in addition to artists. This reflects what Graham H. Jordt and Ledon Veta describe as algorithmic gatekeeping. Their research argues that platforms regulate access to opportunities by determining what becomes visible and what remains hidden. In this sense, algorithms function as gatekeepers that influence economic outcomes. The significance of this concept becomes clear when considering recruitment, client acquisition, and professional networking. If visibility determines who gets seen, and algorithms determine visibility, then algorithms indirectly shape access to career opportunities. The issue becomes even more significant when we consider labor. One of the strongest themes emerging from the academic literature is the concept of visibility labor. Duffy, Harding, and Vergara Calderon define visibility labor as the continuous effort required to remain relevant and discoverable on digital platforms. Traditionally, creative labor referred to the production of artwork itself. For a 3D artist, this might involve modeling, texturing, sculpting, rendering, or environment design. However, platform based professional life introduces an additional layer of labor. Artists must regularly post updates, engage with comments, respond to audiences, optimize content, and monitor engagement metrics. This work often occurs alongside traditional creative production. Duffy Powell and Nieborg further describe this process as aspirational labor. Individuals invest significant amounts of unpaid effort with the hope that future opportunities may emerge. The rewards are uncertain, yet participation feels necessary because professional visibility increasingly depends upon it. For small studios, this creates a difficult balancing act. Time spent creating LinkedIn content is time not spent developing client work, building portfolios, or improving artistic skills, yet failing to maintain visibility risks becoming invisible within the platform ecosystem. The result is a professional environment where success depends not only on artistic ability but also on a willingness to perform continuous promotional labor. While visibility labor affects all users, it does not affect everyone equally. This is where the concept of social capital becomes particularly important. According to Ellison and Vitak, social capital refers to the value generated through professional networks and social connections. Within algorithmic environments, social capital acts as a visibility multiplier. Users with larger networks naturally receive more engagement. More engagement signals relevance to the algorithm, leading to greater visibility. Increased visibility generates further engagement, creating a self reinforcing cycle. This process benefits large studios and established organizations. When a well known studio publishes a project update or recruitment post, its extensive network immediately provides the engagement signals required by LinkedIn's ranking systems. Smaller studios, however, face a different reality. Even when producing work of equal or greater quality, they often lack the audience size necessary to trigger these visibility mechanisms. As Sue and Resnick demonstrate, visibility within professional networks is heavily influenced by network structure and interaction quality. Smaller networks therefore translate into reduced discoverability. This creates a feedback loop. Large studios become increasingly visible because they are already visible. Small studios struggle to gain traction because they begin with limited reach. Rather than flattening professional hierarchies, the platform often reproduces and reinforces them. This observation challenges the common narrative that digital platforms automatically democratize opportunity. Instead, LinkedIn appears to amplify existing advantages. To understand how these theoretical concepts operate in practice, I conducted primary research with Kinshak Modi, co-founder of Setucom Studio. The interview provided valuable real-world insight into how a small 3D art studio navigates LinkedIn's platform environment. Modi explained that LinkedIn currently serves primarily as a platform for showcasing work and maintaining professional presence rather than directly generating clients. However, he acknowledged that its importance continues to grow as professional networking increasingly shifts online. One particularly significant observation concerned changing user behavior. Modi noted that personal stories and narrative driven posts consistently receive more engagement than purely professional updates. This reflects LinkedIn's transformation from a traditional networking platform into a hybrid professional social environment. His experiences align closely with the industry reports discussed earlier. Visibility is increasingly tied to engagement and storytelling rather than portfolio quality alone. The interview also reinforced the issue of structural inequality. Modi observed that larger studios benefit from stronger networks, greater brand recognition, and more consistent audience engagement. Smaller organizations face greater difficulty attracting attention despite producing high quality work. Perhaps most importantly, Modi highlighted the resource demands associated with maintaining visibility. Consistent posting requires time, planning, and ongoing management. In Setucom Studios' case, LinkedIn management is outsourced, effectively transforming visibility into an operational expense. This observation perfectly illustrates the concept of visibility labor discussed by Duffy and colleagues. Visibility is not free, it requires continuous investment of time, money, and effort. The interview, therefore, provides practical confirmation of the patterns identified throughout the academic literature. Platform participation creates opportunities, but those opportunities are distributed unevenly. In conclusion, the evidence suggests that LinkedIn functions as far more than a professional networking website. Through the processes of platformization, algorithmic gatekeeping, visibility labor, and social capital accumulation, LinkedIn actively shapes professional outcomes within the creative industries. For small 3D art studios, success depends not only on producing excellent work but also on understanding and adapting to platform logic. Visibility increasingly requires strategic engagement, audience cultivation, and continuous promotional activity. My research therefore concludes that LinkedIn does operate as an unequal algorithmic gatekeeper. While it offers opportunities for professional exposure, those opportunities are mediated through systems that favor users with existing networks, greater resources, and the capacity to perform ongoing visibility labor. As an aspiring games artist entering this industry, the implication is clear. The future of creative careers is no longer determined solely by artistic talent. It is increasingly shaped by our ability to navigate the platforms that control professional visibility.
What type of post or activity seems to get more visibility on LinkedIn?
Currently, personal posts have been getting more viability on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Uh, any kind of other posts are not getting any more leverages because I don't think most people are looking at LinkedIn as a professional.
Mhm. Right. And how much time do you spend on LinkedIn compared to your creative work?
Not much. Honestly, I have given most of my account to an external agency that manages LinkedIn for us.
Mm.
So I hardly spend any time. Maybe like 2 3 hours a week.
Okay. And do you think LinkedIn fairly supports small studios or favor larger ones or well connected ones?
They definitely help larger studios more than smaller studios, especially because they have a lot more to post and a lot more people to for them, and they have been making connections for a longer time, so that helps them as well. Mostly because of their name and their strength.
Right. And how has your experience with LinkedIn changed over the time in terms of visibility and reach?
Major part of LinkedIn was just to get hired or get any kind of jobs and stuff like that. Now it is very important to develop yourself as an expert in the field, and it has changed from being a professional social media to a social media now.
Right.
It does a very similar job to Instagram at some point.
Mhm.
So that has been the new change, I think, in terms of visibility as well, because before visibility was not an important factor on LinkedIn at all. Now it is very important, just like how it is for instance.
Right. And what strategies have you found most effective or for improving your studio's visibility on LinkedIn?
The most important factor has been consistent posting, because without consistent posting, I think LinkedIn doesn't really push or post to everybody. That's the major thing. And the other thing is personal posts. Personal posts seem to be getting a lot more attention than any kind of professional post. So those are the two main things I think.
So it just became like an Instagram, like a social media where you have to constantly post to just get visibility.
The moment you stop it, the visibility also goes away.
Yes, correct. So that's for all your questions for your interview. Thank you.